Good afternoon or good evening, depending on where in the world you are joining today's webinar from. Welcome to this month's edition of the Next Level Purchasing Association Members Only webinar. My name is Charles Dominic. I'm the founder, president, and chief procurement officer of the Next Level Purchasing Association, and I'm also delighted to be your presenter for today's webinar. Before we get started, I'd like to remind all of you who are either SPSM certified, enrolled in the SPSM certification program, or enrolled in the All Access plan that the slides from today's webinar are available for you to download right now. Log into the members area of the nextlevelpurchasing.com site and navigate to the library tab. There, you will find a link to the slides from this webinar. If you're not currently in one of those groups that has access to the slides, a little bit later, I'll cover how you too can get access to the slides from today's webinar. Today's webinar is geared towards individuals who are leaders of a procurement team. However, if you're not a leader, this webinar will still be incredibly valuable to you. If you aspire to be a procurement leader, you'll be ahead of the curve. And even if you don't aspire to be a procurement leader, this webinar will give you insights into how your management views you and how you can stand out as a valuable part of your team. So, with that little bit of housekeeping out of the way, we can get started with today's webinar. Are you struggling to improve the performance of your procurement team? If you're like most procurement leaders, you are only partially satisfied with the results your team is producing. You are expected to deliver bigger and better results, but you worry that the skill levels possessed by your team may limit your ability to achieve your goals. Do you think that you only have one or two team members who can handle your most challenging projects? Or do you find that you're spending too much of your time helping your team members with situations you desperately wish they could handle themselves? You love to upgrade the capabilities of your procurement team, but don't know where to start? Well, procurement departments can be models of excellence in their organizations. They can be comprised of people who apply skills to deliver measurable bottom line impact to the organization. They can be departments where the leader actually has the time to do what he or she is paid to do. Lead. If your procurement department isn't quite there yet, well, you're not alone. It is easy to get stuck in a rut unless you have a step-by-step plan for identifying opportunities for improvement and then acting upon those opportunities. But it hasn't been easy to find a realistic plan to implement until now. I've authored this webinar to provide you with 7 easy steps for transforming the skills of your procurement team and delivering better results to your organization. Since the year 2000, the Next Level Purchasing Association has been helping procurement departments improve their contributions to their organizations. This webinar will give you the strategies we've used with so much success throughout the years. Follow each of these steps carefully, and you are virtually guaranteed to improve your department's positive impact to the organization. This webinar is designed to give you all of the structure you need to lead this transformation yourself. But if you need any assistance in the process, please feel free to call upon us here at the Next Level Purchasing Association for help. So let's move on to the first step. Step 2, document the department's goals. Well, I know you already have your goals documented. Why am I including this as a step? Any effort to develop a team skill should be aligned with the ultimate goals of the department. Sounds cool, but you'd be surprised how many times skill development and the goals of the organization are not aligned. I've seen a lot of companies spend their limited training dollars on seminars, workshops, and the like that are not really relevant to what the department is trying to accomplish. But begin with the end in mind. As Stephen Covey so eloquently wrote, you can increase the probability that all actions that you take will move you in the direction of achieving your goals. So yes, some of your goals probably look like this. Net cost savings of X dollars, improve supplier delivery performance from X% to Y%, quality defects from B% to A%, increase internal customer satisfaction rating from X to Y. Have documented goals visible or at least accessible to you as you walk through the remaining steps of this process as you develop it. Never forget the ultimate reason for skills development, and this is to enhance the organization's ability to achieve its goals. Now we can move on to step number 2, which is determine the competencies required to achieve the goals. A competency is one particular facet of the profession in which specialized skills are required. In the Next Level Purchasing Association's Strategic Procurement and Supply Management Body of Knowledge, or SPSM-BOK for short, we have identified the 8 most common and critical competencies in the profession. We group these 18 competencies into 4 levels. The competencies are illustrated in the SPSM-BOK Mastery Model graphic you see on your screen. Step back to the previous slide, you'll see that level 1 is comprised of competencies that we refer to as essential procurement skills. It'll be a little small for you to read, but I'll just go over them verbally. Those essential procurement skills are tactical purchasing, analysis and spreadsheets, contract law, negotiation, purchase best practices, and sourcing. Now, these are the competencies that we feel that everyone calling themselves a procurement professional should have. Or if you're new to the profession, these should be things that you get up to speed on very, very quickly to be at a level 1 status within the procurement profession. Level 2 competencies are what include essential procurement skills, and they also include the additional competencies that we call global procurement management. They are purchasing management, project management, basic global buying, and advanced global buying. 3, as the moniker may suggest, represents an even more comprehensive degree of skills, a more comprehensive collection of competencies. They include the level 2 competencies plus what we call enterprise-wide procurement influence, things basic finance, advanced finance, inventory management, supply chain quality. And level 4 is the highest level. It represents the most comprehensive collection of competencies. It includes all those competencies from level 3 plus the additional competencies that we group into external procurement influence, things like social responsibility, supply chain sustainability, diversity, and executive leadership. So those represent the competencies as grouped by level. The current slide shows those competencies a little bit bigger for your reading pleasure. Same competencies. We've combined the basic and advanced global buying into a single bullet point there. We've combined the basic and advanced finance into financial acumen into a single bullet there. So you can see there a better representation of all of the competencies that we feel are required for true modern excellence in the profession. The goals. Each goal will likely require a high level of skill in one or more competencies. Different members of your team will likely have strengths, different competencies. So you need to determine first which team members contribute to which goals, and second, in which competencies those team members need to be strong in order to maximize their contributions to the organization. For example, if one of your department's goals is to achieve $10 million in cost savings, the individuals who are accountable for contributing to that goal will likely need high levels of skills in sourcing and negotiation. Another of your department's goals is to support the launch of a new product. The individuals who are accountable for contributing to that goal will likely need high level of skills in project management. So with your goals in mind, answer the question, who needs what skills? Organizations, the aspiration may be to have uniform skill levels in all competencies across all positions. Having uniform skill levels in all competencies across all positions gives you flexibility to move team members among various roles and mitigates the risks that can arise when the incumbent becomes unavailable, for example, due to resignation, illness, vacation, etc. However, if that is too lofty of an aspiration, the remaining steps of this process will help you identify and prioritize the specific competencies requiring improvement for each team member. Now, step 3, which is determine how to assess skill levels. Now that you know the competencies in which each of your team members should be strong, the tricky part is determining what skill levels each team member actually does have in each competency. There are 3 common methods for doing so. Our first method we'll call skills assessment method A, and that's self-assessment. One commonly used approach is to have each team member complete a self-assessment. And this can be as simple as writing something down in Word. And while this can get the job done quickly, it's not likely to be accurate. First, the assessment is inherently subjective. Any skills assessment should be able to challenge a skill level claim with the questions according to whom and compared to what standard. The answer to these questions for this method would be according to the individual and compared to that individual's opinion, respectively, not the strongest benchmarks. Someone can tell you that they're a great negotiator, but if you observe them in a negotiation, they may get their lunch eaten for them by their supply counterparts each and every time, but they think they're a great negotiator. Second, there is a risk that a self-assessment might be completed defensively. Individuals may feel that there's, some type of ulterior motive to having a self-assessment done, and there's a risk that the assessment may be used to identify candidates to be downsized, or on the other hand, to award promotions or raises. Therefore, individuals may rate their skills higher than they truly are in order to avoid punitive measures or to achieve rewards. Attitudes of individuals in these situations may be characterized by statements such as, if I don't recognize my skills, how can I expect others to recognize them? And if they knew my real skill levels, they wouldn't be asking me to do this self-assessment, so I'd be modest. Or quite likely, they may be as to what their skill levels are. Let's face it, if you don't know all there is to know about, for example, supply chain social responsibility, you know it all. You don't know what you don't know. So that's skills assessment method A. Skills assessment method B, which is manager assessment. Another approach is to either begin with a self-assessment and validate it with the manager's review and update that assessment, or B, to simply have the manager assess each staff member's skill levels independently. Of course, this approach is still subjective and inside the box. I talked about how individuals may not know what they don't know and therefore think that they know everything there is to know about a certain competency. It may be true of managers. Managers may think that they know everything there is to know about a certain competency and not know what they don't know, and in turn think that their staff know what they don't know everything that there is to know, when that couldn't be further from the truth. An internal assessment does not compare skills with best-in-class procurement professionals. It compares it with internal expectations, which can often drift into one of two extremes. One extreme is the perception that the current team has adequate skills, and the extreme is that the current team has been here a long time and the team members know their jobs inside and out, both of which may be wrong. So that was skills assessment method B, the manual assessment. And the third method that we'll talk about is skills assessment method C, the third-party assessment. The approach is to have the skills assessment performed by a third party. A third-party assessment can provide the most objective data, and you may be surprised that, depending on the provider, you can have a procurement skills assessment performed at little to no cost and little effort. Regardless of the method chosen, you need to have an idea of at least 2 tiers of skill levels in each competency: acceptable and acceptable. Do the current skills cut it or don't cut it for each person for each skill level or for competency? A graduated measurement with dip between these 2 tiers is better, but you must at least know the demarcation point between acceptable and unacceptable. 3. Now we can move on to step 4, which is determine the skill gaps. In step number 3, you decide how to assess the skill levels of your team. In this step 4, you will execute the process that you selected in the previous step. This process will conclude with measurements of, or at least opinions about, the skill levels of each employee across several competencies. For each individual, you should now know competencies the individual has, an acceptable level of skills, and in which competencies the individual has an unacceptable level of skills. Where individuals had unacceptable levels are considered your skill gaps. Step 5. Develop a skills development roadmap. Once you know what the skill gaps are, as determined in step 4, it is necessary to prioritize how you will address them through training and professional development. There are 5 common methods for deciding upon the order in which skill gaps are addressed. In all methods, normally only the individuals whose skill levels were rated as unacceptable in a certain competency would be required to participate in professional development for that competency. Common methods of prioritizing professional development are those that you see on your screen: prioritization by complexity, prioritization by individual weaknesses, prioritization by departmental weaknesses, subjective prioritization, and hybrid prioritization. The prioritization of professional development is the heart of your skills development roadmap. A development roadmap is simply a document listing the timeline for training that each member will receive over the course of a certain period. Let's talk about each prioritization method separately. We'll begin with prioritization by complexity. Under the prioritization by complexity method, you will structure your skills development roadmap such that training topics are ordered from the most basic topic to the most complex topic. Some procurement leaders like this approach because it feels very logical. Topics build on one another in the way that a college curriculum would, beginning with, for example, Algebra 1, moving on to Algebra 2, then trigonometry, calculus, and so on. So you may begin with training the appropriate people in practical purchasing, then move to analysis and spreadsheet, training the people who need that, contract law, training the people that need that, and so forth. That complexity. Another option is prioritization by individual weaknesses. Under prioritization by individual weaknesses method, you will have a customized skills development roadmap for each individual. Each individual will be provided training on his or her weakness competency first, followed by training on his or her second weakest competency, and so on. Procurement leaders like this approach because it does not permit any single person's weaknesses from going unaddressed for too long. Prioritization by departmental weaknesses. A prioritization by departmental weaknesses method, you will rank the competencies in order from strongest to weakness for your department in aggregate. Instrument methods that numerically measure skill levels. An average score would be computed for each competency using the scores from each individual that participated in the assessment. Each individual would be trained on the department's weakest competency first, followed by training on the department's second weakest competency, and so on. Now, procurement leaders like this approach because it is a team-building exercise as much as it is a skills-building exercise. The teams often feel like they are all moving in the same direction for the greater benefit of the department. Additionally, individuals cannot feel singled out when it is the team's weaknesses that dictate the priority of training rather than the individual's weaknesses. Two prioritization methods to go, and the next one is subjective prioritization. Though the preceding prioritization methods are pragmatically structured, often a procurement leader has special insight into his or her team or the organizational culture that may dictate a different approach. The procurement leader is encouraged to utilize his or her hands-on experience and gut instinct to evaluate whether a more subjective method might be the best choice. In other words, it's good to know what the shelf methods are and what other people are doing, but have special insight into your department. It's possible that you may want to prioritize it your own way. And finally, there is the hybrid prioritization. Of course, any of the foregoing prioritization methods can be combined to determine the optimal approach to professional development. For example, urgent cost reduction goals may dictate that negotiation should be the first competency improved, irrespective of the relative weakness of negotiation compared to other skill measurements. In this case, perhaps negotiation training would be undertaken first, followed by the competencies in the order dictated by prioritization by departmental weakness method. 5. Moving on to the penultimate step 6, which is improve skill levels. By this point, you know who's what skills and when you want these skills to be developed. So it's time to identify the training that can help you increase the skill levels in the competencies where there are skill gaps. Today, there are a lot of options for training. The purpose of this guide is not to describe every possible course from every provider, but we can group the type of training into 3 categories. There's public seminars and conferences, such as the upcoming NLPA conference in Pittsburgh in October. The on-site training, where if you have enough people in your department, you can have training conducted on your site, right in your facility. And there's online training, also called e-learning. Another consideration when selecting training is the concept of certification. You base your training around certification rather than just unrelated training topics. Training can lead to certification, so you need to decide whether or not pursuing certification for your team members should be part of your plan. In many cases, it may make a lot of sense to do so. After all, certifications such as the SPSM are structured in accordance with what is very typical for the competencies to be developed. Beyond just the skills gained in the training for certification, team certification can have other benefits as well, such as being able to demonstrate value to management and your stakeholders by achieving a third-party standard for excellence in the profession. So you can, by having all your team members certified, you can go to your internal customers or your management and say, hey, look what we've done. The team is now, for example, SPSM certified. This shows that we are serious about being professional. Like your finance department everyone got the certified public accountant certification. Like your engineering department may, if everyone got the professional engineer certification there, it's a way of showing, hey, we have a high quality team here. These aren't just people off the street. These are people who are certified. Your people may be certified. Your engineering team may be certified. That's their way of proving their value, and this principle can apply to procurement as well. Other benefit of a certification plan and approach to training is that you can raise the morale of team members. These people can get personal recognition for their new skills and achievement by complete programs, getting an exam, getting certified, using the credentials as their names. Then that shows that they, as an individual, are pretty darn good at what they do and know a lot. At any sourcing decision, selecting the provider of your training is critical. Just because two organizations may offer training on a topic with a similar name or a similar topic does not mean that the quality of the training they provide will be equal. Ways of evaluating a training provider are reviewing customer testimonials, ratings, and/or case studies, reviewing any free sample educational material that they may make available, reviewing relevant trade publication articles, interviewing the management and/or instructors of the provider. Finally, something that you can do is ask them about retention strategy. The reason for that will become apparent later in this webinar, so we'll just close up step 6 there and move on to step number 7, which is measure and sustain skill improvements. As you've improved your team's skills through professional development, it's important to both measure and sustain those skill levels, both for the individuals and the team. Measuring and documenting improvement is important, and management of some organizations may take a position such as, I authorized a big training budget for you. What did that for my investment? Here are some ideas for measuring the skill improvements in a way that can be communicated to management. Performance metrics. How team's performance after skills development compared to its performance in the period just prior to skills development. While perhaps not 100% of any improvements could be attributed to training, it's likely to have played a major role in any procurement transformation, and that should be noted. Observations can be helpful. As a leader, you work with your team day in and day out, so you can observe things that do not necessarily show up in the numbers. What difference do you notice in your team members? More confidence, speaking the same language, better morale, more professionalism, more respect from internal customers? If you've made good decisions along the way, the improvement to your team should be apparent. It is then critical to sustain those improvements. I previously mentioned asking providers about their retention strategy. Learners can get a spike in their skills and performance immediately after training, but sustaining that spike isn't always a given. A provider who provides retention materials and services can provide a big advantage to you and your team by ensuring that new skills aren't lost. I always recommend repeating any skills assessment that you have done. Annually or semi-annually is good. A way of measuring the improvement of your team's skills. Plus, it can actually help sustain those skills. If an individual knows that they will be quote-unquote tested and that there's a certain expectation for the results, they are more likely to study. Will studying for this reassessment quote-unquote cheat the results? Absolutely not. It will help them refresh their memory of some things they learned, but perhaps due to their roles have not put into practice right away. And what's important is not just that they learn new skills during training, but that they have those skills in their toolbox for a lifetime. Brushing up can only help. It is a given that individuals on the team will change over the years. You can't afford to have every departure of a trained professional push you backwards. So as new employees enter your procurement department, it is advisable to assess their skills, identify any gaps, and close those gaps sooner rather than later. Right there on your screen, you see our 7 steps. And this concludes the 7 steps to improving skills and getting better results. Following these steps listed on your screen can relieve you of the frustration you felt when contemplating how to overcome the obstacles to your team's success. You're now better prepared to transform your team into one that consistently meets and exceeds its goals. If you are interested in having the Next Level Purchasing Association provide a third-party skills assessment that incorporates benchmark data for hundreds of procurement professionals assessed across a variety of industries, or if you are interested in learning more about how the SPSM certification can help your procurement team deliver better results, please contact us at 1-412-94-1990 or info@nextpurchasing.com. So now it is time for your questions. Please turn your attention to the corner of the WebEx console, and there you will see a Q&A section with a blank rectangle in it, and you can type your question into that blank rectangle, hit send. I will read your question aloud and answer it live right here on today's webinar. So now is the time to start asking your questions. And while we are waiting for questions to run, I'm going to be answering a very common question that gets asked at our webinars. And that question is, how can I get the slides from today's webinar? Well, if you are SPSM certified, a relatively new benefit of being SPSM certified is that as long as you're an SPSM in good standing, you have access to the NLPA library in the area of the nextlevelpurchasing.com website. And in that library, you have a lot of materials available to you, and I'll talk about those in just a minute. Also, if SPSM certified but are in one of 2 programs that we have, you also have access to the sites. Programs are the SPSM certification program. So if you're not SPSM certified but you're enrolled in the program and working towards your SPSM, you also have access to the library and thus slides to today's webinar. You are in the All Access plan, same thing. Now those programs differ just a little bit, and I'll go through the differences now. In the SPSM certification program, you will have access to NLPA webinar slides and on-demand replays for most of the webinars that several years. You will also have access to a variety of templates. Those include our RFP template, our cost savings reporting template, supplier scorecard template, and more that are added continuously. And by the way, just as a hint, look for next week's purchase on Tuesday in your email box, and you see another template that we are adding. You will also have access to transcriptions from interviews with procurement experts. In the SPSM certification program, you have access to the 6 online courses of that program. You were eligible to earn the SPSM certification. The access is limited by individuals. It's an individual program as opposed to your whole company, and the cost is just $1,159 per person. Another way you can get the slides to today's webinar is if your company has you signed up in our All Access plan. Now, the All Access plan includes slide on-demand replays of all of today's or all of our members-only webinar, including this one, various templates, RFP, cost savings, etc. Transcriptions from interviews with procurement experts, and all of our online courses, all 42 of our online courses. During the time that you have All Access plan, you can earn all of the certifications they're eligible to earn, limited only by your time and your ability to get through the educational programs. The All Access Plan is available for your entire department, and the cost of the All Access Plan is $2,199 per person. If you are interested in the SPSM certification program or the All Access Plan, please get in touch with us. The contact details are on your screen. Phone is 1-412-294-1990, or our email is help@nextlevelpurchasing.com. Let me go to our question queue and see what questions have been asked today. And from Kevin Wallace. The question is somewhat unrelated, but why do we list all the SPSM levels when above level 1? No question, but I'll talk more about the levels of SPSM. When you're SPSM certified, that means that you have completed the courses that cover the competencies of level 1 exam and submitted your application to become SPSM certified. Now, that is the essential procurement skills. That means that you have mastered those essential procurement skills, and in my opinion, I think everyone who calls themselves a procurement professional, the responsibility of negotiating, sourcing, etc., should be certified at level 1. The other levels are more advanced, so you got to become certified at level 1 to be eligible to be certified at level 2. Level 2 adds additional competencies that you have to master, and basically those are geared to people who are buying internationally and or leading a purchasing department or supervising a staff. Then level 3 is even higher level, and that's geared to enterprise-wide procurement influence, where you know enough about how procurement is dependent upon areas like finance and engineering, supply chain, so forth. So we love the levels because it's really an individual decision how far you want to advance in your career. Some people may be happy at earning level 1 and stopping, while other folks may have the ambition to be certified higher level. I hope I answered your question, Kevin. If I misunderstood, please feel free to ask again. I'd be happy to elaborate. Okay, question. That comes from Maria Mila Sue. Maria asks, I just got promoted to become a purchasing director. How else do I enhance my skills aside from listening to your webinar? By the way, thank you for this opportunity. Well, Maria, great question. And congratulations on being promoted to purchasing director. That is awesome. In addition to the webinars, we also offer online courses that, unlike the webinar, which are done live, they're available on demand anytime that you need to. And you can take just a single course. You can take a collection of courses that you use. You can choose to enroll in the SPSM certification program, which has pre-selected courses. You can take all of our courses. Another way, if you want to enhance your skills beyond what you learn online, you can attend conferences. This plug, Next Level Purchasing Association is having our conference in Pittsburgh this year. We'd see you there. Conferences are a great way to learn and as well as to network face-to-face with other procurement professionals. So that's our option. There are several books out there. I'd be recified it and shamelessly plug my book, The Procurement Game Plan, but certainly a lot of other books out there as well. So there are lots of resources out there for you. Next Level Purchasing Association can be a provider of any of those resources to you. We'll be honored, but certainly no shortage of other resources out there as well. Books, courses, conferences, ways to learn, and of course these webinars. Scrolling through other questions. Okay. This asks, could you go back and speak to prioritization by complexity and prioritization by individual weaknesses? Sure. Well, I'll try to simplify those a little bit for everyone. Prioritization by complexity basically means you go from least complex to most complex. So again, I use the college and you have mathematics course, Algebra 101, Algebra 102, geometry, trigonometry, calculus. In procurement, that may be things like tactical purchasing. That would be things like how to find suppliers, how to write an RFP to get bids, how to compare bids, things like that. This would be your Algebra 101, your more basic things. And then you'd work up to contract law, whereas, for example, maybe you need to negotiate contract terms and conditions, and you know those. And you could get more advanced into negotiation, best practices, procurement technology, things like that. So that's saying, okay, we're going to teach you something difficult until we make sure we teach you the foundations. Now, prioritization by individual weaknesses, this is where you look at each individual in their department and you look at where they're most deficient. If you have someone in your department who has never negotiated before or might be really bad at it, you don't want, and they're negotiating, you don't want to wait the whole department goes to negotiation training. You want that person trained right away, whereas maybe you do have a seasoned negotiator in your department, but they are just really, really terrible at the analytical piece of it. You ask them to do a pivot table, and they look at you like a deer in headlights. And if they're given data, they have no idea how to summarize that to know where there's opportunities for savings. So maybe that person, rather than training them on negotiation, which they've done for 20 years, maybe you want to train them on analytics. So it's all about looking at each person individually, seeing where their biggest weaknesses are, and training those men on those items first. Hope that comes from Julio Galicia. Julio asks, how long shall the 7 steps cycle take in order to keep the team interested? Well, it depends on how detailed you get, how formal you get. One of the longest things will be, skill gaps, step number 4. And determining the skill gaps depends on step number 3, where you determine how you're going to assess skill levels. If you do a self-assessment, it could be as little as a day, like sending them a list of competencies and saying where are your strengths, where are your weaknesses, asking them to email you by the end of the day, and you have that, then you'd have step number 4 done. If you want a more formal process, and let's take it to the other extreme, if you want to have a third-party skills assessment for a team, that may take a couple of weeks because, for example, with the Next Level Purchasing Association's assessment, we have a 63-question file that people need to fill out. And that takes about an hour, but not everyone has an uninterrupted hour where something that important be interrupted. So maybe you allow a couple weeks for that. So when you talk about things like that, take up to a few weeks. Improve skill levels. It depends on how many skill levels you are looking to improve. Every person only has to improve one competency, uh, an online course that they complete a day, a week, or what have you. And then measure and sustain skill improvements. Generally, when you look at performance metrics and want to do a before and after, you're looking at 1 year versus the next. So I would say that you look at these 7 steps over time and look at it as, a true investment time of your organization. And I recommend it being treated strategically. And being treated strategically means that you're going to focus on something for at least a year and then compare the next year with the previous year. Again, if you want to be in a hurry for whatever reason, could you get it done in a few days at one? Yes. So I think you need to, look at, strategic goals within your organization and then prioritize it appropriately. Personally, I feel I was the procurement director of any particular company. I'm going to look at this as a year plus to really get people through sufficient training. But then again, I've always been an advocate for tons of training. Other organizations, perhaps not so much, and maybe looking at getting things done, getting through 7 steps in a week, and then moving on to another priority. So there are a few different places you can be on that continuum between multiple years and multiple weeks. But perfect answer. Okay. Next comes from Okung. The question is, of 7 steps mentioned, it's obvious the third-party assessment you talked about is the best. But how can one make the best of subordinate manager assessment without using a third party, despite its setbacks? I think that I'd give are just to be honest. Encourage the individual honest, encourage the managers to be honest, and so that's one thing. Encourage honesty. And another thing is to get honesty. The man has to be transparent about what is actually going to be done with the results. If saying, look, within the purpose of this assessment is just to determine what training we get for you. It's not to determine whether you're going to be fired. It's going to result in the guy who sits next to you being promoted instead of you. It's just to improve you so you can improve our team. If you're that clear with it, I think that can be helpful. If transparent and you communicate well about it, you will get the honesty that you need. And then the third thing I'll mention is, even get in-house, please consult outside resources. Get a feel for what else is out there. Never do things in a vacuum where you're just comparing skills with internal opinions. Look at what other people are doing with procurement technology. Look how much other procurement leaders or procurement professionals know things about finance, know about things related to global procurement. Don't just be satisfied within your 4 walls. So that's the advice that I'd give. That was a great question, Okung Umo. Thank you very much for mention that the audio has been an issue today. I apologize for that. Other people don't have any problems. You never know when we have large attendance. I do apologize. Perhaps look into that to see if there's a dramatic problem with that. Apologize. Okay, next question comes from Carol Huber. I'm sorry, Carol. Carol asks, I am the new procurement and contract coordinator for a public organization. How does the SPSM cover public procurement? Well, Carol, great question. What we found for the years, public procurement is, or the, I should say, the good public procurement departments are constantly looking to the private sector to implement private procurement practices in the public sector. Private sector is years, if not decades ahead of most public procurement departments. So it is a good thing to look to the private sector and determine which of these practices should we bring in to our organization. What the SPSM certification does not cover are the specific rules that apply to your government agency. Those vary from government agency to government agency. So, for example, a agency may require that minimum of 3 bids are obtained before awarding a contract. Government agency may require that a no justification be approved by your government agency, or that purchasers that are more than $100 must be put out to bid, things like that. So in procurement, there are a lot of rules that governments look to be followed note for note. You should learn those rules so that you can comply. But the SPSM can help you is show where the what the best practices in the private sector are, so you can get help in adapting those to the public sector. Great question, Carol. I thank you very much for that. Let's see. Question comes from Ololo Munjal, and the question is, I work with a local non-government organization fully dependent on funding. Currently not funding as much as coming in, and thus we've resorted to cost cutting and cost management, which has been quite successful. How can I best this to management to justify funding for my team's training? Well, the key is that good training will help you save money. And ideally, the amount of money that you save by implementing what you learn will far exceed training investment. Let me just give you an example, and I have this example just because of the SPSM certification that the Next Level Purchasing Association provides and researches. But the average SPSM, since their organizations, I believe the number was $497,777 more per person per year than someone with no procurement certification. So it goes to show that the more you know about procurement, the better of a job you'll be able to do at cost cutting, and the amount that you save will far exceed your training investment. So this one example that I'll share. All right, to be the last question that we have time for today, I'd like to thank you all for attending today's webinar. A great group, great questions. I hope that I've given you, with these 7 steps, the structure to really drive improvement through your department by improving the skills of your team. So thank you very much for attending, and I look forward to seeing you all on a future Next Level Purchasing Association members only webinar. Good, everyone.